Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of the Simulated Air Tanker Operations briefs. I am Nick Mitchell. I am one of the developers for the group. And as you can see in front of me here, I've got the DC-10, one of the VLATs. And the DC-10, I wanted to kind of show people what it looks like in the actual sim itself. There are some hiccups when it has in the developments of this. So this particular version is not the version I will be using. This is more or less the prototype version. The tank is done for the most part. I just have to figure out how to texture it. I need some tutelage and some more tutorials on how to properly texture stuff in Gmax. The way that I had gone about doing this before, it apparently didn't work. When I went to import this into Model Converter to attach it to this version of the DC-10, the textures didn't work. So the way I went about doing that didn't work. I had to do a pseudo modification in order to get those to work in here, in order just to get into P3D. As you can see, there's a demarcation between the actual correct paint and the version that I just kind of threw onto it. I won't be using this version. I'll be going with the another author's version of the this DC-10, because this is actually based off the SGA/Eric Cantu version. Just the version that I decided to do, the prototype version, isn't a correctly sourced version. The person that went about doing this used the SGA version, but the FSX native converted version is actually done by somebody else, and they used it without permission. And it's just, I want to sidestep and avoid all of that incorrect usage aircraft. I'd like to keep everything legitimate, so I'll be going with another author's version. So I have to redo a lot of this, but I am in contact with that person, and we are trying to work through that. So the DC-10 project will continue on. Now, that also brings about, how many other model conversion projects are there? Well, to put it lightly, there's a ton of them. I just can't leave well enough alone, and I have to keep finding stuff to throw a tank on, it seems like, anymore. So I mean, the Bell 412 and the Bell 212 projects are testaments to that, as well as the DC6, DC7 projects before this. Yeah, I just can't leave well enough alone. I just have to keep constantly messing with stuff. I just can't help myself. So, and there's just a huge need for it in The Sims to cover all the versions of stuff. So, and without bringing the 412s, the Bell 412s back into this, more helicopter stuff. If you didn't see the video before, I am working on wigwag or pulse lights for them in the sim. I guess I can jump into those in this video, and you can see them a little better. And I did add 2 additional liveries. Those are it. I'm not adding any more liveries to it. Once these are done, that's that. And the 412s are close to being done. It seems like I've been working on them off and on for a long time now. So I did add Kestra helicopters from Australia. I added 2 liveries, which I guess I'll show you here in a second. I'll go ahead and jump into those, as a matter of fact. So here we are in the 412 again, yet again. So the thing about pulse lights, as they're known, or wigwag lights, is that a lot of aerial firefighting aircraft actually use them in varying degrees. I mean, you can look at just about any aircraft, or I shouldn't say any, I should say many aircraft in the aerial firefighting community use a version of wigwag lights, or pulse lights as they're known. Pulse lights are just simply alternating lights on the fuselage or on the aircraft in some fashion that pulse. They slowly fade on and off. The S2T uses them. A bunch of helicopters use them in the community. Sky cranes, Hueys. All kinds of aircraft in the community use them. So it's kind of disappointing to me that nobody has represented them in some fashion, at least in the freeware department. In payware aircraft, there are some aircraft that do have pulse lights, but nothing exists, as far as that I'm aware of, in the freeware community that represents wigwag lights. So I kind of got around to creating a pseudo pulse light to put on the 412s here. And as you can see, they kind of alternate back and forth. It's kind of what a pulse light does, but these are just modified strobe lights. And on these, there'll be a form of landing light, and you can turn on and off with the regular nav lights and all that. But yeah, as I was saying, no other aircraft really has them represented, which is unfortunate considering, like I was saying before, aero firefighting aircraft use them a lot. So for low light visibility and things of that nature. So I kind of want to jump into how many projects do we have in development. As I was saying, just to put it simply, there's a ton of them. We just can't leave stuff alone. We have to constantly mess with stuff. So not only is there stuff that I'm working on, but there's stuff that Jeremy or other developers are also working on. So Jeremy's working on stuff from scratch. So I can guarantee you that if you don't see us working on something, publicly, we're working on something else back there in the background. So, and me in that regards, I have to knock it off right now. I really do. I can't stop. I really can't. I find something else to mess with, and it distracts me from what else I'm working on, and it snowballs. So, not only am I working on these helicopters you see here, the DC-10 I just showed you. I've got the P-61s that I'm also trying to get worked on. But I also found another aircraft to work on, and that is the Lockheed Electra. So, if you're not familiar with the Lockheed Electra, it's basically a P-3 Orion. But they did convert a number of them into air tankers back in the day. In the United States, the P-3 has been used as an air tanker since the 90s, but nobody really had gone around to tanking a version of the Electra for the Canadian operators, which, there's a number of operators that have used them. I think, we've got Conair has used them in Canada. You've got Airspray that uses them. You've got Buffalo Airways that uses them. So, and in the sim community, there's been people that have repainted them for, years now. But there's no tanker version, at least that I'm aware of. So I simply tanked them, a tanked version again. So that's yet another aircraft that's going to be, coming to light. So not only do we've got, let's go through the list. We've got the DC-10s that are working on the 412 and 212 versions. We've got the P-61 as well. And you've got, this Electra version that I'll be working on. You've got these other repaint projects that I'm working on. You've got the A26s that I'll be starting here soon. You've got the AT-802 tanked or the wheeled version and the float version I'll be working on. You've got these CAL FIRE Captain Sim C-130s that I'm redoing. You got those. You've got Jeremy, who's also working on trying to convert those Captain Sim C-130s over to use PBR and P3D. And to just kind of branch out into the stuff that Jeremy's working on. He's also working on a lot of stuff too. He doesn't post a whole lot on here because he's just flat out busy with everything. So everything he's doing. So what is Jeremy working on? So I wanted to kind of touch base on those because we've got people asking about the P2 Neptune projects. Yes, we are working on P2 Neptune air tankers, and we have for a while. Jeremy's working on those from scratch. Um, they are shelved for right now, and that's because he is working on a high detail P3D native S2T. And he showed me development shots of that thing, and it is simply amazing. And Milton Shoup's version that's out there now is all well and fine, and the repaints that I did for them kind of woke them up a little bit, I think, in my opinion. But Jeremy's version is just, oh, it's just so much better looking, so accurate. It's just amazing. I'll just leave it at that. And he is working on that one, and whenever he decides to do what he's going to do with that, whether it'll be payware or freeware or whatever else, I don't know what that will be. The fact that he spent so much time on it, he may make it payware. I'll just leave it at that. He might. So, but as far as the exact details go in that regard, he'll be the one that'll be the one that's in charge of that, obviously. And then once he's done with that, he'll move on to the Neptunes eventually. And he's got other aircraft. He's kind of mentioned to me that he's also working on as well in the background. So, but I just kind of want to touch a base on with people because people have been asking about the Neptune project. It is still alive. It's back there, a little bit. So it is there. So, and like I said, we leave well enough alone. We have to keep constantly finding stuff and modify them. We just can't help it. In the community, it's just a severely untouched area, and we want to keep bringing stuff out there for everyone to, get aircraft out there and keep flying stuff, and the keeping stuff up to date, and even going back into the archives as they are and touching on these vintage aircraft as well. Because we got people in the community that either flew them or saw them fly, or they've recently come across them and hey, they want to fly them. DC4, DC6, DC7 in particular recently I've messed with. So that's the kind of stuff we're trying to deal with and keeping up with the community. So the 412s will eventually be out here pretty soon because like I said, I'm almost done with those. The 212s will come after them, etc., as I touched base with in the other video. But let me go ahead and jump into the Electra, and you can kind of see a basic walk around of what that's going to look like, and we'll kind of go on from there. So here we are on the Electra, and this is the paint scheme that's been out for a while. Somebody else did of it. This is not my livery; it's somebody else. Somebody else did. And like I said, they've been out for years in regards of libraries that have been done for them, but nobody has ever put a tank on the bottom of them. And put them out there publicly, for people to use, as far as I'm aware of. Jeremy did post. He will be. He has done some tank modifications in the past as well, and he has mentioned in the past that he may be doing an objects package. Now, what that object package will consist of is another thing altogether. Is that it will be used with Firefighter X. Now, if you're not familiar with Firefighter X, it has an option in it that you can basically take whatever aircraft you are flying at that particular moment in time, whether it's a DC-3, for example, etc., etc. There are tank models you can actually put stuff onto, Bambi bucket versions of aircraft for helicopters and things like that. And basically, he's developing an object pack, or whatever in the past was thinking about doing a package where you can basically do what I'm doing and essentially attach those tanks onto whatever aircraft you want. So that's kind of something that he was maybe thinking about doing. But me, I'm kind of hitting in the area where people that don't have Firefighter X, it's just a strictly flat out already modified version of those aircraft, and you don't have to use or have Firefighter X to do that. It's just bam, it's already there. So that's something else I'm also trying to look at doing with this particular one. So like I was saying, there's literally tons of aircraft that we're looking around trying to do here. So um, yeah, so here we are in this area now. We're looking at this aircraft, the DC-10s, um, the P-61s. Those are the versions that I'm looking at doing right now. So we've got those other ones that I mentioned previously. Um, you know, we've got a huge number of aircraft out that we're trying to get out there for everyone. So if we go through those periods of time where it doesn't seem like anything's going on, I guarantee you we're messing with something. Uh, we're trying to mess with something to get out there and get done. So just bear with us. If it goes through those periods of time where it seems like nothing's going on or it's real slow. Like I said, I'm messing with something. I guarantee it at this particular juncture. I'm messing with something or trying to get something done, or I'm painting something. So and we go through those periods of time where I seems like we don't shut up on the group. You get something that comes out from me a bunch of times, and then every once in a while you see something come out from Jeremy. Like I was saying last week, he had the video and the picture updates for the PBR modifications for the Captain Sim C-130. Stuff like that. Just keep looking around, and for sure we've got a ton of projects coming here. So just bear with us. And no flying in this one, and I'll try to keep it under. It's not an hour-long video like the last one was, and no flying. So I just kind of wanted to throw out there, hey, we've got all these projects coming out. So here you are. Here we go. It's and just a little bit of an update just before we leave. This is the kind of the last aircraft I'm going to update on this the projects. Like I said, then I'll kind of recap, and I'll put up a little list here at the end of the video of what aircraft we're actually working on at this particular point. So, in case me repeating myself 3 or 4 times in this video didn't quite sink in of how many aircraft we're actually working on, I'll leave a list up here, and you can actually read it as I'm talking about this last aircraft, which, as you see here, is the Captain Sim C-130 in my version 2 of the CAL FIRE liveries. So after I came across some liveries of what they'll possibly look like in their completed liveries, you'll see the 3 numbers across the top of the fuselage, and all that. And I've added the number here under the fuselage, since obviously the 3 numbers won't fit like that. So that's on there now. And if you see, I've also put the RADS XXL slot in the belly where the theoretical tank will go whenever CAL FIRE installs the Coulson style tanks in the belly. Because if you aren't familiar with the C-130s, they originally were Coast Guard C-130s, and the U.S. Forest Service got them in exchange for C-27 Spartans, and they converted them into air tankers. Now I say converted, roughly that just meant that they took existing MAF systems in the rear here, and they used the pressurized tank systems like a MAF C-130, and they used those for a couple of seasons, and then the Forest Service, as they've done in the past, decided they didn't want to spend the money on it, and the program ended. And CAL FIRE luckily was in a position to pick up all those aircraft, and in my opinion will use them in a much better fashion than the Forest Service did. But without going down that rabbit hole, they will be putting Coulson was awarded the contract to do the tank modifications for them. So I've also, like I said, made to represent that in the bellies of these, as well as with the version 2 liveries on these. I've gone through and evened out the textures a little bit better, made them a little bit more even, because the last C-130 pack I did, those C-130s were, they were okay, but they looked like they'd been through several seasons without being cleaned, and these look a little more like they would after maybe they used a season or so. The other ones were just super dirty looking, and I didn't, after I kept looking at them and kept looking at them, as you would, at least I would anyway. I was just kind of like, these are ugly. So I decided I wanted to redo them, and then, after I found out about the livery changes and all that, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to redo these. So, and I think they look a lot better now in this, as I've redone the textures and made them kind of match a little bit better. There's still some areas I still need to go through and fix, but some of the major changes, decals like stripes on the fuselage, the APU, cowl right here is on this particular one has it, and then I'll be adding Tinker 116 to at the end after I'm done with the 118 here. But yeah, so that's kind of the update for this particular one. It was more of a project update, but it kind of gives you an idea of all the stuff that we're kind of working with right now, and hopefully in the future, and then hopefully expanding everyone's hangars, if you will, a little bit more as far as aerial firefighting aircraft goes across multiple countries. So yeah, with that, tune into the next one, and I'll see what else we can do. Maybe I'll do some more flying videos or stuff in the next one, or maybe do some just by themselves. So thanks again, and tune into the next one.